So Lisa, take me through your personal journey. Why this type of work and how did you get involved in it?
Mm. It's it's kind of a long story, but so it starts, really in my childhood, to be perfectly honest with you, and who I am and what I believe I came here, my mission here on this planet is to help awaken people to who they truly are, which is God in form. That we are creator beings, and that we do have the capacity to create our reality. That we live in a holographic reality that is simply a projection of the energy that we hold. And from a young age, I had a very dysfunctional upbringing, which was just the perfect breeding ground for me to take on a lot of disempowering programs that I've had to work through that have given me the experience. And basically, I call it sort of workshopping. I went through all the workshops that I needed to experience the hardships that I now help people navigate through. So without going through it yourself, it's very difficult to help people do it. So I was very blessed. My father, even though he wasn't really much in my life, he didn't like since I was one, my parents were divorced, and I grew up in a really big family where I was the youngest of eight, and my other seven siblings all had the same father, but I had a different one. So I grew up in taking on these belief systems that I wasn't worthy, I wasn't deserving, I didn't really belong. I didn't, there was lots of things programs and beliefs that I took on that have really been the fuel to the work that I do today. I ended up at a young age of 18 getting married to someone much older than me, and it was a narcissist. He was like a narcissist. It was a very controlling, narcissistic relationship that I was in for over 28 years. I raised my two sons in that relationship. There were lots of great things about it, but at the end of the day, it was a controlling relationship that didn't enable me to express my own authenticity and perpetuated the beliefs that I had that I wasn't worthy or deserving, and that I wasn't truly able to safely step into and express my authentic self. I finally got out of that relationship in 2015. And in 2017, I had like another spiritual awakening, like a lot of people are going through now in these days of ascension. And for your viewers who don't know what that means, we can touch on that if you want. But we are going through an ascension process, and this planet is rising into higher frequencies that are allowing people to open up to who they truly are, to remembering that they are God in form, creating the reality through their energy. And so in 2017, I had a spiritual awakening. I was gifted with light language, which is it's kind of like people might liken it to speaking in tongues sort of thing, but nothing that I chose. It just suddenly started like barreling out of me one day. And it really transformed my life. Everything changed. I had to really take a step back. I also got a back injury at the time. And so I was out for almost 3 years with three torn discs in my back. And I just decided that just before that, even like when I got a divorce, I decided that I wanted to become, have a better life. I wanted more financial freedom. I wanted better relationships. I wanted, like we all do, we want just the best, happy life where we feel free and safe and relaxed, to be our authentic self and emotionally regulated. And I didn't have that. And I had always been into personal development my whole life, into spirituality my whole life. My dad introduced it to me, I was going to say earlier, and I kind of got off track. When I was younger, he did introduce me to this book called A Course in Miracles, and things like Wayne Dyer, Marianne Williamson, Norman Vincent Peale, like all these things I was reading from the young age of 14. And so I really that's, I think, what helped me not, I don't know, become a drug addict or something, that I could have really turned the corner and become, I have a little experience with some topless dancing for a while. But just like, not having those worthiness belief programs. But because of the personal development I had done and already the introduction to spirituality, I felt like I had a base that kept me grounded. And I knew there was a bigger purpose to things. And I didn't feel like so much of a victim, even though I did play the victim role quite a bit. So I just decided, like, I want to turn my life around. And what I realized, I was just listening to a podcast or a YouTube channel one day. And you know how you have those moments where it's just like you hear one thing somebody says on a podcast or something, and it's just like this epiphany. It's the thing you needed to hear. It's the sentence that just cracked something open, and it wasn't anything spectacular, but it just hit you at the right time. It was the message. And it was just talking about subconscious beliefs. I think it was talking about money manifestation and money blocks, and how if you aren't bringing money into your reality, it's because of subconscious beliefs that you're holding. And when I heard that, I just knew, okay, well, then that's what we're going to do. We're going to find out what the subconscious beliefs are, because, according to this talk that I realized at this moment, I'm not aware of them. And I'm like, so I have to become aware of something I have no clue about that's running under there that is actually running my life. I'm like, wow, okay, like I'm going to become the greatest effing detective of this brain of mine ever. And that's really the path that I then went on. And I just, because of the light language, because of the back injury, I actually met someone else and ended up getting married again in 2017, which was wonderful because then I had a partner to just be there with me and not necessarily support me financially. That's a whole nother story, but support me, just like even around the house, because I couldn't barely do anything for 3 years. And he was a great support, and he's just is able to hold space for me. So having that, it just allowed me to do nothing but work on my own self. I was fortunate enough to have worked in the corporate world for over 27 years. And so I had like a retirement fund, and I just literally decided I wasn't going to work, and I couldn't work actually because the light language wouldn't let me. It just kept coming out of me, and I could barely control it, and I couldn't even walk because of my back. So I just spent the next like solid 3 years going inward. And I signed up for a PhD program in integrative health medicine. I started working with a coach on a weekly basis. I decided to become a life coach myself. So I started training, got 2 certifications in life coach. I got certifications in pretty much everything like Reiki and neuro-linguistic programming. And I just studied and worked on myself. I actually launched a podcast with a friend of mine and my husband called Enlighten Up, where we went down all the rabbit holes of spirituality, conspiracy theories. So I learned a ton of stuff having weekly guests on that show. We did that solid every week for over 2 years. So yeah, it was just a really, really deep dive inward. And on this journey, I through the life coaching certifications that I was doing, I realized that I was really interested in conscious parenting. I have 2 sons of my own. At the time, they were like in their mid 20s. They're in their young 30s now, and I'm just really passionate about being a mother. Just love being a mother. It's something that comes very naturally to me, and so this idea of conscious parenting came up as I was getting certified to be a life coach, and that was very intriguing to me. So I started researching what conscious parenting was, and then to workshop that idea and get experience with it, I started nannying. So that's what I did. I started full-time nannying actually around COVID. It kind of fell into my lap synchronistically, where I became a full-time nanny. And that allowed me the experience that I needed to practice these conscious parenting techniques on small children, because mine were grown and I didn't get to do that. I was doing it with them as adults, but I wanted to do it with the little ones. And then everything really started coming together. This passion I had for understanding the subconscious mind and how beliefs were the things that were holding me back from, whether it creating great relationships in my life or creating money. And then understanding, oh, this is where they're formed over on this side of things. And with conscious parenting, meaning we're conscious, we're not just in autopilot saying the same stupid things our parents said to us, when we're really conscious about it, we can really change that subconscious programming for them when they're adults so they don't have to do the same work that we're having to do. They don't have to heal like we have to heal. They don't, so it's like I came up with this tagline. It's like I'm committed to creating a generation that won't need healing. And so one day when I was on an exercise machine taking a class for my integrative health degree, they were talking about in this course in Eastern cultures how they teach their children, specifically in Thailand, about their energy bodies, how we have a chakra system, meridians, that we're energetic beings. And again, it was like that epiphany moment, that bolt of lightning, literally, that hit me. And I jumped off the machine. I had to like run to go tell my husband because I didn't want to like forget this idea. Like I was always getting sort of like people might call them downloads or rememberings or whatever, like these big ideas that are important. And I said, I know what I need to do. I need to write children's books and teach kids who they really are from a young age. And repetition being the mother of learning, like it's over an 8-year period. I'm going to write them in series of 3. So like one for a 0 to 3 age, one for 3 to 7, one for 5 to 8, 5 to 8 that tells basically the same concept, but we're repeating it over and over and it's just getting a little more intricate as we go, as they grow, as their brains start to develop. And so I did. I started writing children's books. We then ended up moving. I lived in the States in Colorado. We ended up moving to Mexico. That's a whole story in itself. And then I just really focused on my coaching and building this reparenting brand that I had discovered was really what I called it, with that we're having to reparent ourselves in order to change the subconscious programs, and then focusing on the flip side of the coin, which is helping parents and like I said, just caregivers and anyone in general, even if you don't have children, anyone who's around children, in understanding the impact that words have on developing minds, whether it's through stories, whether it's through media, or just what you're saying to them, that everything is a download, that children are literally in a hypnotic state from ages 0 to 8. They're in a theta brainwave state, which is the same state that you're put in to go under hypnosis. So it's a direct access to the subconscious mind. And I saw the relationship between the inner child and the subconscious mind, that the inner child truly is the gateway to that programming in the subconscious mind. So if we can directly speak to our inner child and just simply reparent them, retell them the things that they were told that, no, that wasn't true. Like that basically, you're not bad. You're not naughty. You weren't wrong. Your parents just didn't know. Like everyone's innocent, but we're just going to tell you the truth about who you are now, over and over and over again. And you're going to embody it as if it already is. And by doing that, we literally change our energetic signature. We change the vibration that we hold. And because we are energetic beings creating this reality, this holographic reality, our reality will change along with it.
So let me ask you then, when it comes to reparenting and the families that you work with, what obstacles do people face in identifying where the work needs to begin and what they have to do then?
Well, when you're working with me, there's no question where it is, because that's my specialty. Like I can literally just see the program where it is and where the root of the program is. But some tips for people who may not be working with a coach, or someone who's able to identify the root program, you can find it in your triggers. The things that get you dysregulated, I can't even express enough, like how they're gold. Like they're literal gold. Like on this journey of mine with my new husband that I met in 2017, he would trigger me, like, or I would get triggered by things that he would do, like whether it was not validating me, maybe using a certain tone of voice, or interrupting or getting defensive when I tried to tell him how I felt about something. And I started, what we need to do is we have to take responsibility for our own programming. First, you have to understand that let me just back up, okay? We're spiritual beings and we're having an experience in this physical body. I like to call this body an avatar because it truly is like we're in a video game. It's a holographic video game. It's like we haven't even created we haven't created anything. Man can't create anything like this, right? It's a God created system, but it's a holographic video game. You're the writer of the program, you're the creator of the program. You're basically God in form. It's like God wanted to have an experience as absolutely everything and fractured himself into everything. God is everything. Every atom, every molecule is God's source energy. So whether it's a pen, this microphone, or this body, we're all made from that God source energy. Simply having an experience through whatever that form is. So when you can understand that, and you understand that, okay, I'm just an avatar, and my brain is the operating system of this avatar. So when you're born as a baby, you come into this world, you basically don't have an operating system. It's just blank, okay? And I'm going to ask you, Terrain, would you agree that every child that is born is as innocent as any other child? No matter what family they're born into, what country, what demographic, every baby that comes out of a woman's body is as innocent as any other baby.
Yes, that is absolutely something I would agree with.
Okay. The only thing that changes from that moment is the programming of this child. The environment that they live in, the words that they are told, the experiences that they have. Basically, what those are programs that are getting downloaded into this operating system. The avatar in the first 8 years is only receiving information about its reality. It's not filtering anything. It's not choosing anything. It's just saying, okay, this is truth. So if it lives in an environment where, say, a very wealthy family that is regulated and, emotionally intelligent and all that, their reality is, money comes easily, that, conflicts are resolved in this way, love comes to me freely, I'm safe to be my authentic self. If that's the experience that they have, those are the programs that are downloaded in here, and they'll create a reality based on that. So that's why you have people who are born into those types of families typically be ones that are able to create wealth for themselves or good relationships or something like that. And then on the other end of the spectrum, that's true. You're born in, to a family where there's drug addiction, violence, poverty. That becomes the reality of the avatar. That's the programs they download into them. And then that's the reality they create for themselves. So everyone is as innocent as anyone else. There's not what we've been duped into believing is that we are these bodies. That you are Terrain, you're not. I'm Lisa. No, this is just a meat suit, basically. It's just an avatar that I'm playing. And I'm only limited by what I believe to be true about the world, myself, and others. And I can change those beliefs about myself and then change my reality which is that exciting thing that I realized, like, oh, it's my belief about money. It's, I was able to uncover that in my childhood, because I grew up with an alcoholic mother who had 8 children. She was single and we didn't have money. And, I had a different father and I wasn't worthy and I wasn't deserving. And she spoke bad about money, and people who had money weren't kind or they were selfish or whatever I was told. I realized after hearing and listening to what I really believed about people who were wealthy that I didn't really believe that, and that those beliefs weren't serving me. That there's nothing wrong with having money, and if I have money, that just means there's more people I can help. I can be a philanthropist with money. Like, just because other people aren't, are greedy or, you know do things with money has nothing to do with me. It's not money in itself or wealth in itself. There's nothing wrong with it. But it was a subconscious belief that I was holding that I didn't realize I was holding until I really sat and listened to what I heard in the depths of my mind. And it was my mother's words. It was my siblings. It was things that were said about people who were wealthy, or if I had certain experiences, how they downplayed them or made me out to be conceited or something like that. And so I just looked at all those things, and then you decide, what do I want to keep and what do I want to get rid of? And then you listen to your thoughts about things. You tune into how you feel about things. And then you just don't engage with the programs that try to get you to engage with them anymore. You just say, we don't believe that anymore. And you literally give it no energy, because everything is energy. Thoughts are energy. These programs are energy. If you don't entertain them, you don't engage with them, you don't feed them, they die off. So what you do is you start to pay attention to how you feel, and you start to pay attention to what you're thinking. And if something triggers you, like somebody isn't listening to you, say, for example, you're telling a story and they're on their phone and they're looking around, or maybe they don't validate you, and you feel yourself getting really pissed off, or really, it depends on who you are. Like, there's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. You may get angry and say something. You may feel like a victim and just withdraw. You may start to fawn because you're like just trying to get them to give you attention. Like, you'll start loving them more. Maybe you'll just get up and leave. But you want to notice these things about yourself and stop blaming the outer environment. And what you want to start doing is seeing your outer environment as feedback, not the problem. Your outer environment is simply a reflection of the vibration and the frequency that you already hold. So it's only feedback in lag time. So if you can look at it like what I started to, so my husband would trigger me, however he would, not listen or something. And I would just sit with that. I'm like, okay, I'm I'm feeling like I would have to use my voice and say, okay, just stop for a minute. Like, I don't like that you're talking to me that way, or I need to go figure out how I'm feeling right now. And I would just say, I'm feeling triggered. I got a dip. And it was just a thing that was understood between us. I'm like, when I get triggered, I don't want to talk about anything right now. We'll come back to it, but I got to go get emotionally dysregulated. And so that's what I teach, is the very number one thing is pay attention to yourself and your feelings. When you feel yourself get dysregulated, you become your number one priority. You go get regulated, because we can't intake any new information when our nervous system is dysregulated. So we have to get ourselves back to a regulated state. You have to get your nervous system used to what it feels like to be safe. So I would just walk away, go take my time. Sometimes, honestly, it would take up to 3 days before I was actually able to process and understand what happened and why it really made me feel the way that it did. And it got to the point where I would then come to my husband and say, okay, well, I was triggered. Thank you for triggering me, because you helped me see something about myself and how I haven't been showing up for myself, or how I need to use my words, or how I've let people, control me. And so he just started saying, you're welcome. to me. Like every time I would get triggered, it was just like a joke. He would just go, I'm like, I got to go upstairs. And you go, you're welcome. Like call out. And that became just a beautiful thing because it's like, he's not the problem. When we get triggered, it's not the other people that are the problem. Because if somebody says something to you that hits a chord with you, you're not a puppet. It's because you've allowed it. On some level, you've allowed it. Like if you're a woman who is worried that her butt's getting a little too big or something, right? This is a typical thing women say, right? Baby, how's my butt look in these jeans? And he says, well, it looks kind of big. And now she's pissed off at him, right? Like, how dare you? That's just rude. But if she wasn't worried about the size of her butt, that wasn't, something like she was confident in how she looked. And she said, how do I look in those jeans? And he's like, your butt looks a little big. And she's like, oh, thank you. That's just what I wanted. So is it what was said or is it how it was received? It really just depends on the person, what their triggers are, what their belief systems about their self are, what wound it's poking at. And so your triggers are your greatest gifts into understanding where you need to do the inner child healing.
That reminded me of a few childhood experiences I had where, as I was trying to find success in my life, it began to shape me in ways that at the time maybe I wasn't ready for. But as I went through it, I was ready because, to your point, I was seeing things differently and then I saw myself differently. And what triggered me, I had to understand and say, okay, why is it that I'm hesitant to be successful? And then when I figured out what I figured out is that the more success I found, the more that it would keep me away from the people that I was around at that time because it created distance. And as a child, I remember that even though my parents were very successful in their career and stuff like that, it created distance between myself and my parents. So I was kind of reliving that, but in reverse. This time it was me finding the success and creating the distance. But when I came to understand why I was feeling that way, then I didn't look back because I realized that it wasn't everyone else, it was me and my contributions to it. The people you work with, Lisa, when they have these moments where they understand and they realize what it is, what are the next steps for them to take to continue on that path?
It's just a continual journey of um, being the master of your thoughts and the master of your emotions. That you just continually have to choose that new belief system. And it's just a work in progress until that new belief system becomes subconscious. And there are ways to speed up the process. I'm someone who likes to, when I do something, I like to go all in. Like, it is the thing I'm going to do. I'm like my son, I said it this morning, I like to crack the code on stuff. And he's like, you always like to say that, Mom, crack the code. And I'm like, I do. It's like once you crack the code, it's like, why would I go back to any other code? um, so it's just like I help people will use affirmations, like even binaural beats, like, different things to just make sure that we're working with the subconscious mind. Method acting, acting as if, emotional regulation techniques. We have to get, it's done, all this work is really done on four levels, which is the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual level. So we have to work on ourselves on a physical level because we carry around trauma in our physical bodies. So one of the most important things that we do is we have to make sure that we have a clean diet, that we're getting chemicals, preservatives, pharmaceuticals, alcohol, as much as we can. We want to get any toxins out of our body. We're doing parasite cleanses. We're doing heavy metal detoxes, getting rid of chemicals in our home, whether it be scented candles or fragrance or whatever you can do so that you're not disrupting the natural processes of your body anymore. Your endocrine system, your hormonal system, the seed oils, the vegetable oils, the chemicals, these things disrupt us biologically, and they contribute to brain fog, ADHD, so if your diet isn't right and you then you're not going to see as much progress as quickly because it's interfering with that. Like fluoride in toothpaste and water that is calcifying your pineal gland. Like we need to become pure vessels again. So that's part of the work. And then also releasing things like I do somatic exercises. We hold a lot of energy within ourselves. So releasing it, I think that is why I tore 3 discs in my lower back. It was the lower vertebrae had 3 torn discs. And I think it was just all because I was carrying so much trauma in my root chakra that it basically just kind of broke wide open. And so I had to focus on healing that, which I ended up doing like 3 years of Pilates. And it was just truly just a gift. Like everything is happening for us. And I realized that this injury, it's happening for me. And I kept looking for how it was happening for me and really focusing on that and looking for the answers, which brought me to that understanding about the root chakra and about holding emotions in our hips. And then that's why my hips were in just excruciating pain for so long. And then just really connecting with that and allowing myself to release the pain that was down there. And then on an emotional level, releasing things emotionally. I think I cried my first 3 years into this. This is not hyperbole. This is not an exaggeration. Every day for 3 years, I was crying, like just streaming crying. Like my husband just started, like at breakfast, I would just be like, sometimes like just start crying, like not little tears, like just sobbing. Like I'm sorry, I don't really know like why. And he stopped asking why, and he's like, because it's a day that ends in Y, baby. That's why. And it just like I had pushed down so many emotions. I had abandoned myself for so long. I had been holding it together for my ex-husband and his, explosive personality, my mother and her victimization and her narcissism, my children because I was their mother and I needed to, model good behaviors for them and wanted to create a stable environment for them. Like I had been holding everything together for everyone else but me. And the healing needed to come. And so we need to allow it to come through our physical vessel, cleaning it up, releasing it, energy healing. Screaming really worked great for me. Like getting in my car felt like a safe place. So when I would get triggered often, I would just go into my car, drive to like a parking lot and literally just start screaming, crying, having little tantrums like I was a 2 or 3 year old, and allowing myself to with no judgment, just knowing that I had to move this energy out of me. We can't suppress feelings in our we do this, we suppress our feelings in our childhood because we're not safe to do it, because most of the time as parents are telling, especially as men, like don't cry, just get over it, you're fine. I see it at the playground all the time with parents and caregivers. A kid falls and they just say, oh, you're fine, it was no big deal. And the kid's crying, and it's like, it's no big deal. You're fine. Look, it's hardly even, it's not even bleeding. You're fine. But we're not saying, ouch, I bet that hurt, and just allow the child to say, that hurt. I didn't like it. And just simply let the emotion come out, validate it, allow it to be what it is without being so afraid of it. But because we've been basically punished and shamed most of our lives for having emotions, we've just pushed them down. And they're going to come up as these triggers later in our life. They're going to come up as anxiety, depression, autoimmune disorders. And these are all the things that I've uncovered that have made me so passionate about this other side of conscious parenting and really being cognizant of the words that we use with our children, and therefore writing children's books to help teach practical methods and just stories and make it fun and model behavior through these characters that I've created, a bunny and a yak named Callahan, that have these interactions, and Callahan teaches courage, that it's okay to have feelings, basically.
So, Lisa, let me ask you then, what are some of the dangers of keeping that all in and not realizing that you need to let it go and release it?
Pretty much what I just said, like anxiety, depression, um, autoimmune disorders, dis-ease. If you break that word down, disease, it's dis-ease. You're holding on to something. Everything is energy. Your body's going to let you know that there's something going on. You know, whether it's cancer or heart disease or diabetes. Yes, these things can have a lot to do with your diet, but they were brought into your reality to show you something. Everything is a gift that happens. Everything that we project out into our hologram, we have to understand we projected it out there. It's in our reality because we're holding the energetic signature of it. It's the feedback. It's not the problem. It's not happening to us. It's happening for us to show us the way.
I love
I
that you said it that way because that to me, and tell me, Lisa, if I'm misunderstanding, please. Once you view it that way, you take yourself out of the victim mentality. You're saying that it's not happening to me, woe is me. This is happening for me. Open your eyes. See
exactly.
what is happening in front of you. I can see some people struggling with that because when the people I work with, when it comes to being a victim or trapped in a victim mentality, it's like old leather. Oh, it feels good. It's comfortable. It's a reminder of better times or some other times, right? But if you go to them and you're holding up a mirror and saying that, hey, life is telling you something. You've been ignoring it for so long. Pay attention now. Like for the people who are maybe on the outside and they're still struggling with understanding that this is being done for them, what advice would you want to share for maybe their partner who sees it, they understand it, but they're with someone that's still struggling in that regard?
I would say for in relationships, first of all, our relationships are also a reflection. So we pair up with people who are reflecting back to us only what we're holding and we need to see in ourselves. And so you can't fix anyone. I'll just say that, okay? Trust me, 28 years. I tried really hard and I realized no matter how much love you pour on someone, if they're not willing to move the needle, you can't do it for them. You just can't. Lead a horse to water, you cannot make them drink. And we're abandoning ourselves when we do that. And our energy is so it's so important. It's literally it's like liquid gold. Like you want to be so picky and choosy about where you put your energy. Okay. So if you have a partner, you have a friend, a family member, someone you love dearly, and they're playing the victim role, let them. Okay. That's what I say. Let them. It's their journey to walk. They're exactly where they need to be. They will find their way. The best thing that you can do for someone you love is to envision in your mind them in their highest light. Send them the energy of abundance. Send them the energy of freedom. See them getting through this. Know that they can. You know, drop little seeds of, I know you'll figure it out. They just need, all anybody wants is to be seen and heard for their own authentic selves. I have gotten it down to the crux, the root problem of absolutely every issue, trigger, and disease is that we didn't feel safe to be our authentic selves. Authenticity is the highest vibration we can hold. Back to being God in form, everyone is absolutely perfect. We're all complete, unique beings here to express that uniqueness and authenticity. I like to use the analogy of like, imagine, like, if you've seen those like earth shows or whatever about insects or birds, and how there's some really incredible, like looking crazy birds and crazy insects. Like you just can't, like, the, the nature is so unique. And we have been programmed, we've been indoctrinated into this matrix system to dummy us down, to keep us in control as worker beings for the controllers of this planet. I'll just say that. And so they've stripped us of that uniqueness and authenticity and tried to make us like everyone else and make us believe we're supposed to look a certain way, be a certain way. Our life's supposed to play out a certain way. We're supposed to do things at a certain age. I mean, age, I'm 56 years old. And so I have come up against a lot of programs recently, starting a new life, a new career, like new everything at like the age of 50, moving to a new country, learning a new language. And I've heard the programs that have come up against, like, I'm too old to start this, or, it's too late, or those are just belief systems. Or maybe you're in your 20s or your 30s and you think you should be married by now, or now I'm supposed to have kids, or I should be getting a college degree, or I'm supposed to do this. These are very limiting belief systems. We came here to be unique, authentic expressions of ourselves, not like anybody else. But school and college and testing and all these things force us. I mean, you bring your child to the doctor and they tell you what percentile they're in F and everything. Like you have to be growing at a certain rate, or, learning language at a certain rate, or math. It's like we're told who we're supposed to be every single step of the way. And this is very dangerous because we came here to be authentic expressions of ourselves. God doesn't make any mistakes. We're just that weird, creepy looking insect that looks wrong, but it's beautiful and it has its own place in the world. And so when you stop comparing yourself to everyone and everything and understand that you are exactly where you're supposed to be. I mean, I could choose the thoughts on a daily basis that, beating myself up for staying in a marriage for 28 years. I can't believe I lost that much time. Or, I'm just now in my I'm still in this PhD program, and I'm like, oh, I should have done that. I could have done that then. Why didn't I? The past is gone. The now moment is all we have. You know, we have the chance now to be the authentic expression of ourselves. And if one of the lines I like to use, and I say it nearly every day, is if you lose something by expressing your authenticity, it is not a loss, it is alignment. Know that in absolutely everything. And I want to give an example of it that it is just, my husband said it yesterday. I'm like, that is just such a great example. We rent our house here in where I live here in Baja. And my landlord, it's like a compound kind of where he owns 4 homes and we live in one of them and he lives next door. And he's a great guy. And he had a party last night. It was Mother's Day in Mexico yesterday. And he invited us, but we're not fluent in Spanish. We understand Spanish, but hanging out with a bunch of Spanish speaking people isn't really our thing. And it's just not our crowd. We just didn't want to have dinner with him. And he had we have this outdoor pavilion and they had this big meal going. And so my husband and I, like, they're eating and we leave the house to go for a walk. And as we're walking by him, he looks at us and he's like, "Are you gonna come like eat with us?" And my husband said, "No, we already ate." And he had this look on his face that he just looked so sad. Like, "You're not gonna come eat with us?" And so we kept walking and we were just talking about it. And like, I'm like, we're not responsible for how he feels. We get to be our authentic selves. We don't want to eat with them. We're going to go for a walk. It doesn't mean anything. And it only holds the meaning that each person decides to give it. And we know that we love this guy and whatever, but that doesn't mean we're obligated to go have dinner with him. And then my husband said something like, except for maybe if he decides he doesn't like us anymore and then he doesn't want to rent to us anymore. Like, he didn't really mean it, but he was just like, playing out that thing. And I was like, then we wouldn't be being true to our authenticity. We would be behaving out of fear of loss. And so if he decides that he doesn't want to rent to us anymore because we're not the kind of people who want to join him for a meal on Mother's Day, then it's not a loss, it's alignment. And that means that we aren't meant to rent here anymore, and we're going to be pushed into the direction we need to go in. And so you can look at just like that's such a, minuscule little, seems like an example that doesn't really mean anything, but that is the meat. Those are the juicy, meaty parts of life where you either abandon yourself out of fear or you move forward in your authenticity with faith that your authenticity will bring you everything you need in life. That is your guiding light.
You mentioned, Lisa, alignment and authenticity. And as we close, what are three things? I'm going to give you three wishes. What are three things you wish people knew about both and why?
About authenticity and
And
alignment.
alignment, yes.
One, just the fact that if you lose something out of being your authentic self, it's not a loss, it's alignment, like truly embodying that. Um, and that you're safe. You're safe to be your authentic self, even if it doesn't feel that way. And for the third thing, I'll say that it requires discomfort. That in order to show up as your authentic self, that you may have to get uncomfortable because we've been so programmed to believe that we're, live like that example I gave about, the meal and my landlord. It was a little uncomfortable. Having to walk away was uncomfortable. But we have to put ourselves in uncomfortable situations. We have to be willing to step outside our comfort zone to claim our authenticity back because we have given it away for so long that when you go back to it, it doesn't feel right. It feels awkward. It feels scary. So face those fears, face that discomfort, and know that your authenticity will bring alignment and you're safe.